everyone. I think we would start now. Eldon, I think we should start now, given that time is of the essence. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
let's get started.
yeah. Good morning again, everyone. Let me just turn my camera on. Hi, good morning, everyone,
Morning.
and welcome. My name is Kavita Besnat. I am the Senior Business Analyst at the Industry and Innovation Unit within the Office of the Prime Minister. On behalf of the unit, it is my pleasure to welcome you all here today for our special event, AI in the Workplace and Lifestyle. At the Industry and Innovation Unit, our mission is to foster innovation, strengthen digital capacity, and create opportunities that empower Guyanese to thrive in an increasingly technology-driven world. So we believe that conversations like this are essential not only to understand where technology is taking us, but also to prepare ourselves to use it responsibly and effectively in our daily lives and across workplaces. Now, artificial intelligence is no longer something reserved for science fiction. It's also not reserved just for Silicon Valley. It's already changing the way we communicate, the way we learn, work, create, and solve problems. So whether you're a consultant or an entrepreneur, a public servant, or a business leader, AI is becoming something of importance in our future and the future that we're building here in Guyana. So the real question isn't whether AI is coming, it is already here. And the question that we should be asking though is how we can make the most of it. That is why we're especially pleased to have with us someone who has been at the forefront of Guyana's AI and technology ecosystem. Our host this morning, Mr. Eldon Marks, is the founder and CEO of V75 Inc., an accomplished technology entrepreneur, educator, and advocate for innovation, who has dedicated much of his career to advancing artificial intelligence and developing local talent. But I'll let him tell you more about all the amazing things he do and his company does. So whether you're an AI enthusiast or someone who's just simply curious, or even someone who's wondering whether AI is secretly judging your grammar in every email you send, you're in the right place. So get ready to learn, ask questions, challenge assumptions, and maybe even leave with a few ideas that you can put into practice starting tomorrow morning. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to our host this morning, Eldon Marks.
Thank you so much, Kavita. And I want to give a special thank you to the Industry and Innovation Unit over at the Office of the Prime Minister for putting all of this together, for making this possible for everyone. And I believe it is exceedingly strategic. We need to ensure that this era that we're upon, we absorb as much of the targeted knowledge and apply it in our everyday lives because it has the potential to transform how we actually work on an individual level as well as a wider scale. So I've been, fortunate to have made a number of different other talks in the past. I've lectured at a university for a number of years, and of all of these types of engagements, this one in particular got me exceedingly excited. I'd usually be nervous before a talk, but this one here, I was particularly excited in terms of sharing the knowledge that we have. And in terms of going through the series, it's a two-part series. I'd like to lay certain house rules before we begin. I'd like everyone to make sure that you pay attention, whether you're on your phone or your laptop. You need to make sure also that you have with you something that you can write on or type on, because it's a workshop. So there's segments in the workshop where we'll ask you to make notes. In addition to that, I'll ask if everyone can mute, just make sure your mute is on before we begin so everyone gets just the speaker's voice coming through. And I do want to engage everyone in, this is a conversation, even though I'm going to be doing a delivery. I do want to stop at certain points in the presentation to ensure that we get some feedback and we have even more thoughts coming through, because again, that's the best way to really tackle this entire era. So To start things off, I need to ensure that you know who your speaker is. There was a brief introduction there just to enter into a bit more of what I've done. I stand at the intersection between academia and industry, which is a very unique position to have. I started off in academia at the University of Ghana in the Department of Computer Science, taught there 13 years. And I transitioned into industry because I was pulled through a necessity to just create outlets, because industry seems to, and it is indeed the platform to do so more effectively for our youth in tech. And I've been working ever since. Back in 2018, I had the opportunity to transition into the AI industry and was able to build an AI team locally. So ever since then, we have been practicing AI, even before the generative AI boom in 2022. But when the generative AI boom in 2022 happened, we were at a crossroads, because we would have built up a prototype, we would have gotten some IDB Lab funding based on that prototype. And then when ChatGPT came about, we effectively realized that our prototype was obsolete. And we had to think very fast. And we got that golden opportunity there in the confusion to realign ourselves with the new era and to rebuild. And we effectively started to engineer in tandem with the rest of the world, because if you would, comb over the various accounts of what happened just a few years ago, just under 4 years ago, everyone would effectively come down to the same conclusion, that there was a hard reset that happened in the technology space because of generative AI, how it took hold of all of the various disciplines and the industries that could now make use of this newfound technology. And what I want to share with you to start things off in this first segment is really laying the foundation, because unless we have that right perspective, we can't necessarily absorb or put into place the information that'll be doled out to you. And I know the 3.5 or so years that we've been consuming social media about AI, there's been a lot of hyped up news about this technology and what it can do, and everyone's coming to the fore and explaining what they've done with it. What I can share with you is this. This particular talk is not going to layer on top of that. Instead, it's going to share our own personal experiences as developers within the field. We are going to take a practical perspective on what that technology is. We're going to filter out everything else that may confuse the noise, so to speak. And we're going to get right down to what it really represents to all of us. And this is the perspective that I'm about to share in the first segment. So this first session itself, it's a 2-part workshop, is really about laying the foundation, seeing it, getting you to see it as well. As the saying goes, perspective is power. So we're going to be laying down the perspective of what AI really should represent to all of us, minus the hype. And in the second session, we're going to be putting that new perspective into practice. So you're going to have more hands-on in that second session. Now, this particular session is a bit long. It's about 3 hours. We're going to have some breaks in between where we can, have some casual conversation, or you can, go off, get a drink of water or what have you. But in the midst of it, there are going to be activities that we're going to be going through. And those activities are going to be driven by tools that we would have whipped up with AI so that we can move forward through this workshop a bit more expediently. So with that said, I want to start the laying of the foundation. And I want to lay this out to you. And the way I look at AI, or at least what has transpired in the last 3.5 or so years, is not unlike discovering fire. And I want that to sit with you for a second.
True from my phone.
There we go. So when our ancestors harnessed fire, everything changed. Lightning struck, something kindled, and then they had before them this amazing new element. They didn't know necessarily what to make of it at first, but they knew that there within that element, there was this potential. And over the years, in terms of moving from just discovering that into wielding it, there were a lot of missteps. As we know, fire is a very destructive thing. It's because it holds such potential. But if we were to direct it in the right way, we can do wonders with it, and we have as a civilization. But it's not always a very neat and calculating path for us. We have to bumble, we have to fumble, we have to learn in the process. And this is what the industry has been going through in the past 3.5, almost 4 years, that this generative AI has come to the fore since ChatGPT came about. The biggest companies right now are still bumbling. They're still trying to figure out how can I make my annual budget in the millions or even in the billions last more than a month that it's being absorbed into AI doing these things. A lot of companies are throwing a ton of money into AI. And again, there are certain missteps because they just don't understand enough about it. Now, the path to understanding AI comes with really paying attention to the process that our ancestors went through when they discovered fire. And it's important not to be too theoretical in this time. It's important to ensure that we practice as rapidly as possible in order to discover what we can and cannot do with this newfound technology. So just to close this thought off as we move forward, I want all of us to recognize that generative AI is a shift. It's a magnificent shift. We haven't seen anything likened onto it, in my opinion, since the discovery of fire. And it's aimed squarely at one of the things, and this is laying that foundation for you. One of the things as human beings, we can't ever make more of. And a lot of folks don't really realize this. What do you think that single resource that we can't make more of is? All right, just think in your mind. It's time. Generative AI has the immense potential right now to give us time back if we use it correctly. So as professionals, we can relate to this. I mean, how much time do you spend just replying to emails on a weekly basis? How much time do you spend searching for information for those reports online? How much time do you spend on stand-up calls and meetings and the like? There is quite a bit in terms of the amount of time that we typically spend as traditional knowledge workers in doing the things that AI can actually do for us. But we don't know how to actually wield that just yet. All right. So we have to extend our awareness around this. So based on research, we effectively spend a whole day a week just on email, and roughly another day just on foraging for information. And 57% of our day is just spent in meetings and communicating and the like, instead of actually creating and innovating and doing more meaningful, productive things. All right. So time is that single resource of ours that we can't buy more of. But AI presents itself as that single tool that can get us to return as much time to ourselves if we use it properly. But in addition to that, what you find is that those who have discovered that, yeah, AI can actually take care of things for me and save me a few minutes or hours, they often spend that recovered time in multiplying the things that they typically do. So they keep themselves busy, which is okay. That's a natural knee-jerk effect of the professional. We recover time so we can put that time and invest it elsewhere in other things, other busy work and things that we do. But what if I told you that eventually you'll get to a point of AI mastery in your journey, as long as you have the right perspective, where your recovered time is so optimal and the multiplier effect is so finely tuned that you can actually focus on life itself, that whole work-life balance. You can focus more on the things that matter to you, to be more of a creative, to be more attentive to the not the daily tedium, but the things that actually make you, to be more innovative as you go. And that is the greatest gift that generative AI has afforded us as a civilization that folks are really kind of missing the point of. But in this particular segment, I will help you to discover what your measure of time recovery is. And I can help you with that perspective and that process and that technique to wield AI in such a way so that it can return to you as much time as possible. And this is what this entire series is all about. Okay, so we want to lock in our minds that the way that we want to look at AI as professionals is a way to actually use that as a tool to take that time back. So as I mentioned, it's the greatest chance we've ever had to recover our hours and to multiply what we actually produce as professionals. Not just multiply what we can produce in terms of how many things we can do, but how quickly we can do it and the quality at which we can do it. All right. So we're going to look at those particular factors. Now, I'm assuming that everyone in here has a decent knowledge of what AI is in general. Some of us may be developers, we may have wielded it in a more advanced manner, but others might just be at that entry level. So this is going to be presuming that everyone has zero knowledge or very little understanding of what AI is, the buzzword as it's thrown around these days. Just excuse me here. I do hope my voice holds out throughout the entire session because I'm battling something. But so we're going to go through some foundations, all right, just to ensure that we understand the terms because we're going to be using these terms as we progress, all right? And I know it's tech related. Some of us who are not in tech might feel a little out of place, but I can tell you something. Like I said, I'm at this nexus where, you're in academia and then you're also in industry. You understand both sides, and we deal with a lot of clients and we have to do a lot of translating. And what I've seen is that there is this discomfort or uneasiness when we are in a domain that is seemingly out of our depth. Tech is such a domain for those who are not in tech, and I understand that. And it's easy to put up a block, a mental block to say, I don't even want to think about that direction because I have nowhere to start. I don't know how to actually consume that information. But what I just shared with you, and it's the unique thing about the era that we're in, is that tech has now taken itself down a few notches. It's now become so relatable. Just like I said earlier, if you understand the value of time, then you can understand where AI is positioned to recover that time for you so you can be more of yourself and you do more and you multiply your productivity. That's the only thing I'd like you to pay attention to. Everything else has been dumbed down, it's been masked because of how intelligent AI is to communicate with us. We don't need to be as technical, and that's the beautiful thing about it. So there's no mental block necessary in entering into this particular field and wielding it. But you do have to know certain things. You do have to know certain words, certain terms. You actually need to know how it works on a very fundamental level. And I'm not going to get too technical with you because, again, I'm presuming that everyone has this basic understanding. But I'm going to present a few words in a minute. I'd like you to get your notepads out, or maybe you can make a mental note of it, just to test your knowledge of the terminologies of the field. And I'm going to present the word. You're going to try to think in your mind what you think it means. Feel free to drop it in the chat. All right. I'm going to be monitoring the chat here. And then I'm going to reveal the actual definition. So you ready? Good. So let's go. We're going to circle around to that particular exercise. But before then, I wanted to share also that the actual technology itself, on a personal level can do wonders. It can do wonders in relation to your day-to-day. And this is a personal anecdote from my recent experience with it. I've built with AI quite a bit, and I've gone to that extent where I could say that I'm pretty adept at it. But it's still it still amazes me in terms of what it can actually do. And the other day I was taking a walk in the park with my son, and I usually, share a few tidbits about life and principles and learnings and the like. And that time I said, this time, son, I'm going to record it. So at least you can reflect on it. So I recorded myself talking to him. I shared a number of philosophical things with him, how you conduct yourself, how you can look at the world and the like. And that was about an hour long recording, because we went around the park a number of different times, right? And I said, let me see what AI can do with this thing, because I need to turn it into written text and I need to polish it up a little bit so that I can share it mostly with my kids, but with other folks who may find value in it. So I dropped this into Claude. Some of you might know about Claude. Some of you won't, but we'll learn all about that in a bit. So I dropped the entire transcript into Claude, and I said to Claude, this is a recording. I gave it some context. Can you distill it? Can you make it into like a book so that my kids can read it? And then it went to work. A few minutes later, I was reading something that brought tears to my eyes. It was my own words, my own ideas, but it was presented in such a manner that it resonated back to me in a way that amazed me to the extent whereby AI can actually do this for us. And what I realized from this is that it was able to take my human ideas, right? Spoken candidly, recorded, transcribed, and then turn that into something that was likened on to, let's say, a Neville Goddard novel or the other greats over the years. And that spoke to me. And it says that a lot of folks kind of give AI a bad name in terms of replacing our human expression, but instead what it did to me was that it multiplied it. It took it further than I could have ever imagined it to go. And that's really the perspective that I want you to hold in terms of looking at the technology, its ability to multiply our potential as human beings on a number of different levels. So here's another one. I'm a developer, like I said, and I code. And I've transitioned. I'd like to say that my breed we're a dying breed. I'm pretty much the last traditional, and some of you are in the audience and can share the same sentiment. We're the last traditional coders that the world will ever know because of AI. Now we can look at it in a couple of ways. A lot of fellow developer folks that I know of feel out of place because of it. They are holding on to the fact that they want to jump in there. They want to code things out explicitly. They want to debug on their own. They want to do everything manually. And they don't want to look in the direction of what this technology can bring. But studies have shown that it can multiply the productivity of a developer by up to 55%. So 55% faster productivity with that maintained quality, or even a higher level of quality we can get with using the tools of our time. All right. And that is a huge shift when it comes to what AI can actually do. And I'll give you some more examples of what it is. The presentation that you're looking at right now, just to use that as an example in this particular case, is generated by AI. It's my words, my ideas, but AI was able to put this together under my direction in a shorter space of time that I would have otherwise been able to do if I had dragged everything together, formatted the text myself and the like. And these are the types of multiplier effects of the technology in a productivity sense that we have to embrace. It might make you feel a little out of place, just like my developer colleagues. Some of us embrace it, some of us don't. But the gains that you are able to derive from wielding the tools the correct way make up for it and then some. All right, so what I want to do right now is get you, and then we'll go into that exercise that I described. I want to get you to take a test. And the link is on the screen here. I'm going to share this link also in the chat so we can all easily click on it. And I want you to get an idea of where you stand with regards to AI. And it's a quick 60-second test. All right. Let's get that in there. All right, let me just double click and make sure that the test is working. Great. All right, so check the chat, click on that link, or you can type it straight from the screen there. And when you get to the page, you'll see a start the 60-second check. But before you can browse around and read about how it works, just to give you more of an idea of how it works, is it's really measuring based on research across 6 dimensions of readiness. It's going to give you a before snapshot of where you stand with AI. And you can keep the report. You can mail it to yourself if you'd like. So it looks at your foundational literacy in AI, your practical fluency, your workflow integration, critical evaluation, ethics and responsibility, and mindset and agility. And then it gives you a score at the end of it. It gives you a grade. So you can read about it. And I'd like to allow everyone, instead of 60 seconds, to give everyone about 5 minutes total to get this done. And if you'd like, share your score or your grade in the chat. If not, then you can keep it to yourself. But the most important thing is just to maintain that, to get a snapshot of where you stand with regards to AI. All right. All right. So I'm going to allow you about 5 minutes to get through that self-assessment.
I got my score. It was 66.
Excellent. All right, so as we fill the silence for those, allowing those who are still completing the assessment, I'd entertain any questions or thoughts from you guys, and then we can resume once everyone's finished the assessment. Anything that comes to mind about your stance on AI?
I do have a question.
Yes.
This Edwards. When utilizing this much or dependent so much or have to depend on much on AI, how would we as persons who utilize like let's say programmers utilize AI to have less consumption of AI made codes than rather us programmers in this era to do it do it manually than depend on AI.
Okay, so let me kind of crystallize what you're asking. You want to find out how traditional programmers can rely less on AI generated code. Is that it?
Yes, keep it original to old school traditional.
Okay. Well, that's an entirely separate workshop. I'm happy to carry. There are processes in place. Of course, everything requires a system. And the system that traditional developers need to apply is one in which you have to define for the AI your own particular processes and standards and what they call invariants. And you actually have to document these in your code base because the AI will default to its own understanding and its own pathways, which may not always align with how you develop. There are some very experienced engineers that have a certain architectural pattern that they'd like to apply to their code base. The AI doesn't know about that. They can do what they can to direct the AI as the AI generates the code. But the standards that are established right now would be to create an agents.markdown or MD file. And in that file, you can specify a number of different patterns and pathways and processes that the AI must actually absorb and follow. If you're using Claude to code, there's a Claude.md file that you can create as well. And then there are other things along the way, such as an invariance markdown file. So if your code base requires certain, let's say, attentiveness towards reuse, and there are certain UI patterns that the AI should not violate, those would go inside of there. So how traditional developers can still maintain their style and ensure the AI just doesn't, generate slop would be through using those particular systems and those markdown files to ensure that whatever agent that is coding up in your code base is going to pay attention to how you want it to code. And of course, apart from that, every single thing that you direct it to do must be planned out thoroughly by the AI first before it writes a single line of code. You have to review the plan, then you apply it, and then you still have to evaluate what it produced after the fact. And that's just a little bit about that. I hope that helps.
Pretty clear. And based on the response that you've given, my last sub question, and that'll be it.
Okay. All right. I still see some responses coming through, but we can entertain another question before we move on. I see Latoya.
Yes, I have my last.
Oh, you have another one? Okay. And then we can have Latoya. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So based on response, when AI creates, let's say we're using Panda or Anaconda, and AI creates a program for that. Can they make mistakes, whereas we traditional or actually traditional programmers can fix as well?
You're asking if the AI can make mistakes?
In terms of programming.
Absolutely, they make mistakes all the time. They make grave mistakes too. They publish API keys to public Git repos and things like that. So they do mess up. And when we get into understanding how these things are actually built, you'll understand why they do mess up. All right. Good, Latoya.
So mine wasn't really a question. It was just, I know right now you're talking about Claude, and I apologize for joining the class late. I actually forgot it was at 10. But nonetheless, I have been using Chat GPT, and what I have found with my use of that particular AI is that I constantly argue with the AI and I push back. So I
Right.
don't take the first response that it gives me, especially if I'm asking it to work on something. Well, what I did is start working with it on things that I was already very fluent in. So I can
Mhm.
spot right away if there were errors or deficiencies. And I also created files that were created just to have like my preset expectations. So I shouldn't have to tell you every time I go to use the AI that I don't like this particular thing or this is not my particular style. And that has helped reduce some of the errors, but there are certain basic things that the AI consistently gets wrong. So even with the use of I still employ traditional methods and use AI mainly for like idea generation and things like that.
Absolutely. And that is indeed an acceptable and recommended pathway. We should never assume that the AI has this infinite and absolute understanding of everything and it never makes mistakes. In
So the
fact,
other thing
we
that
have
was
to.
important for me to learn and that I didn't know before, it actually came up when I was doing a review for foreign masters that I'm doing. They actually had a course on AI where they started speaking about AI hallucinations and the fact that AI will make up things to fill a gap depending on your what prompts you give it. So that has been very useful to me in acknowledging that AI is not always right and you need to challenge it.
Absolutely. And that's a great takeaway. So let's, I believe everyone may be through with the snapshot. So your reports should give you an idea of where you currently stand, rough idea. Of course, all of that was a ton of research distilled down to about 6 questions thereabout, to compress it within 60 seconds. The idea is to give you a general insight into where your knowledge is as a wielder of the technology. Now, in pushing forward, we want to take that with us and we want to use that as our starting point. And then, as long as we know where we're starting, we can understand the delta to get us where we actually need to go. So this is the exercise that I was talking about earlier, where I'm going to show you a few terms. And again, this is again layering on top of that understanding of the field. These are terms that, regardless of whether you're in tech or not, if you're speaking AI, you need to understand what these terms mean. So you can get your notepads out, or if you're typing on your phone or your computers, and write down your own definition as I show the word, and then we can continue onwards. But earlier, I was mentioning that there needs to be an understanding of where AI can take us and where we can actually step in and control that AI in terms of what it can and can't do. This is a snapshot there, and then just afterwards, we're going to be jumping into getting an understanding of those terms that I was mentioning. All right, good. So in a snapshot, we want to understand that AI is genuinely good at starting from zero content. It can draft a lot of things for us. We've seen that when ChatGPT came out, it would create entire blocks of text about some topic or the like. It can do quite a bit in terms of summarizing and synthesizing things, and it can transform our writing or its existing writing from one version to another in terms of tone, format, length. And it can actually brainstorm with us. And we can do a lot of work in a short space of time with the way that it typically works with natural language. And it can even take some of our work and correct it and recommend improvements on top of that. Those are some of the things that AI is generally good at. As we were just discussing, we need to pay attention to what it can't do, what it's genuinely not good at. And AI would make you believe that it is indeed the authority on something, and it confidently states things that are blatantly incorrect. And then you can pull it up, you can challenge it, and then it can say, it would typically say, oh, you're right about that. And then it sort of course corrects on that. So never assume that AI is always speaking the truth. And you hear about this term context. And context is something that these types of models that drive generative AI require. It's a standard input. Otherwise, it will fall upon its own parametric type of knowledge, and knowledge that is read across the internet, those types of fact-based things. But naturally, if you want to direct it to your own particular outcome, you have to feed it specific context. So it doesn't have that context unless you give it to it, and you can't assume that it does. And then it's relatively shallow without you directing it properly. So these models were actually originally designed to be directed by some very complex things called embeddings. And embeddings are clearly not human readable, but they're able to advance it to an extent whereby they turn the models into something that can speak our language. They turn the models into these engines that can take directives that are in natural language. And based on those natural language directives, the models can actually do more based on our instructions. So we have to steer those things. And again, it's not a source of truth. You need to verify everything that it comes up with, because it does make things up. And you own the outcome, not the AI. But what we've actually seen over the years, or just recently, is that there are these things called agents right now. AI agents are taking the world by storm, and they are actually creating a lot of other possibilities, because these typical models can be considered as the engines, right? But the agents now are the result of putting that engine into something like a chassis that can direct the raw intelligence power of the model to do things on our behalf. And we'll learn a bit more about those as we go. All right, so this is the guess then reveal exercise that I was talking about. There were some other things inserted in there, but we're definitely about to start that. Get your pads out. The first word is model. What do you think that means? And if you want, you can drop it in the chat, your own interpretation of what it is, what that model is. And of course, all of this is within the context of Gen AI, as per the talk. All right. Okay, so hold that in your mind. This is the definition of the model, right? It's the AI's engine. Just like I mentioned just now, there's this AI model, this generative AI model, that can be seen as the engine. It has all of the raw intelligence, and it's been pre-trained on the entire internet and then some. And how these things actually work is that they are just fancy autocomplete tools. So if you guys remember the autocomplete feature, I think it was popularized by Microsoft, and then Google search kind of picked it up. As you type a few words in, you'd see the autocomplete complete the entire search query for you. That's what these models are trained to do. And this is why they make stuff up a lot, because they actually autocomplete every single thing that they spit out to you, word by word, or what we call, and you'll see this term, token by token. So they actually autocomplete word by word, and until they have something that seems cogent enough to be a complete human thought, and then they send that out. And in that autocomplete process, it's all lights and clockwork, it's all mathematics and algorithms and the like, and neural nets coming into play. So it's all calculations that's happening, but it looks amazing because the patterns that they're trained upon are based on us. And that's why it looks so magical. That's why when ChatGPT came out, they were able to put a lot of money into training these models to pattern after human beings and human writing and human thoughts, human processes so well that it made more cogent output than output that seemed irrational or unintelligible. And that's the magic within these things. They just generate one bit at a time. And because they're based on human patterns, it looks amazing and it looks like they have their own intelligence. To some degree, there is intelligence in there, but it's not theirs, it's ours. That's been imprinted upon them. So the key thing about models to take away from this is that you don't build them. These days, very well-resourced labs train them up, and they train them up based on foundation models. But there's less and less work being done towards actually building them from scratch, even though they're still done. But as developers or consumers in typical industries, you just direct the model. You don't build them. You just direct it meaningfully. But the skill of directing it, that's the real question. That's what we need to build. So here's the other word, prompt. What do you think prompt means?
The detailed instructions that you give the AI on what it is that you want to achieve.
Very, very good. So it's pretty much what you say to the model. And that was covered earlier. So it's like I mentioned earlier, models existed, but they weren't taking human level instructions, but they were able to make a breakthrough, and they allowed the models to take human level instructions. And that is a prompt. So we can just speak as naturally as possible, and the model will understand what we need to do, and it will do it for us. So the better you can prompt, the better the output. And if you're a programmer among us, you'll find that if you write proper code, the program works well. If you don't write proper code, the program has a bunch of bugs and it will break. It's a similar principle in terms of understanding what a prompt is. It's really just an instruction that these models can follow. All right. Token. Think about that. What is a token? I kind of gave it away earlier. All right. So tokens are unique to these generative AI models, primarily because it's how they kind of piece things together in terms of their output. It's really a chunk. It's not a whole word. It may be a couple of words. It may be a portion of one word and another word. But tokens are really a quantifiable chunk that the model generates each time it auto-completes something to complete an answer, chunk by chunk by chunk. All right. And it's what they spit out at us, and it's how they internalize what we write to them. All right. And this is how they quantify these commercialized models. When you put the models in the cloud and you use them, they just pay attention to how many tokens it takes for you to get your output and get your work done, and they charge you based on that. And this is why, we want to pay attention to token spend and token budgets. And when I mentioned earlier where companies like Meta are burning through their entire AI spends in a matter of months that they projected that will last for an entire year, it's the tokens that their teams are burning, right? Context window. We're getting a little technical. Context window. Think about that. All right. So each model, and there are tons of models out there, ChatGPT is not a model. ChatGPT is built on top of a model called, well, the original one in 2022 was GPT-3, right? That's the name of the model. Then right now there's like GPT-5 series, 5 point whatever. Those are models. And depending on the model, you have a certain amount of information that model can hold in its own mind at once. And that's what we call the context window. Because remember, these models require as input information that we give to it in the form of instructions and context. And that context window fills up based on how we are communicating with the model, how much information it needs to hold in terms of the history of our communication in order for it to produce the next output. All right. All right, so The thing to take away with context, as I mentioned earlier, is that we need to make sure that we give the model enough context for it to do quality work for us, right? And if we fill up that window, it'll forget everything else. Just like us, we only have a certain amount of things that we can hold in our minds at any point in time. And beyond that, we kind of forget and just drop things. So that's in the equivalent, the context window for the models. Good. Hallucination. Now, Latoya had mentioned this earlier, hallucination, and I know we've heard this one. So hallucinations, models hallucinate. Don't trust the models as explicitly as we'd like. They're getting better, but we still need to ensure that we make the right decisions around the information that they give us. So a hallucination is when the model starts to generate things that seem very cogent, but it's really just trying to fill a gap. So if you ask it for something and it doesn't have enough context, it's going to fill the gap because that's what it's programmed to do. And usually it fills the gap with things that seem very confident and correct and factual, but they're not. And that's what we call a hallucination. And that's why we need to verify everything that comes out of these AIs before we pass it off or hand it up and the like. All right, agent. I mentioned this earlier, an AI agent. All right, agents are big these days, okay? And the agent is when you wrap a model in something that directs the model and combines with other things like tools, and you'll see that in a bit, so that the agent can go out there and do things for us. Some of us might have heard of OpenClaw or Claude, or we can even consider ChatGPT to some degree as an agent. They are able to take our instructions, generate information, but also go out there and get stuff done on our behalf. So that's pretty much what an agent is, all right? And later on, we're going to learn about leveraging AI. And this is the place that we need to pay attention, how to use the right agents to leverage AI on our behalf, all right? Harness, this is as technical as it gets, all right? Probably the techies among us may get this term, AI harness. It's a relatively new term in the context of AI. And really what it is, it's software, an app that is wrapped around a model or a number of different models that allow us to wield and direct and coordinate the AI models in meaningful ways, all right? So you can think of it as a cockpit being built around the pilot, which is the model. And ChatGPT is a harness, technically speaking, that was built around the model GPT X, Y, Z, that allows interfacing in meaningful ways with individuals, with people, or even other agents for that matter, okay? So that's what a harness is, right? So when you actually communicate with AI traditionally, you don't talk directly to the model, you speak through the model's harness, and the harness is able to give you a nice interface. The inputs and outputs go through the harness, the memory is managed by the harness, and the context and everything that the model may need to get its job done, that's taken care of by that piece of software, the harness. All right. Tool. So I mentioned earlier that if we give a harness some tools, then it can do things for us, and it then becomes an agent. So a tool is something that is a capability. It's something that allows, let's say, something as simple as having your agent speak with another system, your email, for example, to access your email, write emails for you, and so forth. On its own, it can't reach your email, but through a tool, it can. So things like email, web search, running code, reading files in your file system are all handled by specially designed tools that are attached to harnesses so that the AI models can be directed to do things on our behalf. And an entire package is what we call an agent, right? MCP, really, really technical, guys. MCP is pretty popular these days. The devs among us might know it. Model Context Protocol. And I promise you, all of this will come in handy. You're going to be speaking like an AI guru after this entire workshop. MCPs are a standard. It's really a standard for tooling. So what we find is that different AIs, different manufacturers of different harnesses had a problem. And that problem was they had to build their own tools in their own way to connect to different common things. So those of us who use Google, for example, or Google Workspace, and we have Google Docs, Google Drive, and so forth, right? Google adopted the MCP standard and exposed MCPs to access their own productivity tools, docs, sheets, etc., so that implementers can plug into them in a standard way. So it's like USB, right, as an example, for tooling when it comes to AI. That's as much as I'd like you guys to take away without getting too technical. All right? Good. Skill. I think this is about the last one we'll go through. All right. Skills have been popularized by Anthropic. Anthropic, they're the guys that made Claude, other powerful models like Opus and Sonnet and the like. And now you might have heard of Fable. So they created a standard to define ways in which we can extend not just the capabilities of AI, but how the AI is actually going to go about in terms of procedures to do things with those tools and capabilities. And that's what they call a skill. All right. So it's getting us to a point where we can write a standard operating procedure in the form of a skill and give it to an AI, and they can operate accordingly in our business processes. And that's what a skill really represents to the AIs, the agents themselves. All right. Good. All right. So to crystallize all of this, I want us to go a bit deeper in terms of understanding how this thing comes together. I did explain that models work by just auto-completing. Then there are agents out there that do things for us. But how do we get here? How do we get to models and how do we get to agents? Where did it all start? And the why is very, very important in just understanding what you can do with it. So without really getting everyone too technical, before all of this AI buzz, there was a point at which traditional coders were coding stuff. And you write code to create a program. And before AI came along, in this manner, that is, developers would look at a problem, and then they would decompose that problem into a series of steps. And then they would write code to represent how to go about executing and solving that problem based on the series of steps. And that would become a program. And if there was another problem in a different scenario, they would have to write another series of steps in another set of code, and that would become another program. So it was very straightforward and static back then, where we as human beings, as developers, would have to think about solving the problem ourselves. Then we would have to outline that problem in code, and then that will become a program. All right. Now, eventually the industry permitted us to take more responsibility off of us thinking so much about getting something done. And we said, if we give a typical program enough information, if we just put it in there tell it about the world, right? Give it as much data about the problem domain that we're trying to solve. Can it go about solving the problem without us having to do so much thinking? All right. And that's where one of the first models came about. It's really an adapted program in a fundamental sense. But to us, it allowed us to do less thinking. We can just say, here's a picture, tell me what it is. Or, here are some numbers. Can you arrange them in a particular way? We wouldn't actually tell it how to do the job like we used to before. And that's really what a model represents. A model is imbued with enough information generated by us fundamentally and enough patterns given from us as human beings so that it can take its own course in solving problems for us, right? And that's like creating something with our raw intelligence. And then we thought a bit further and we said, given that we created effectively a brain here, can we give it a body? Can we give it, arms and legs in the figurative sense to go about not just thinking for us, but doing stuff for us? And that's where the agent comes in. And that's really where we are right now. Industries are avidly after creating more and more agents. Agentic AI is the buzzword right now. And it is the meaningful product of our era. I'm sure there's going to be something else that comes after this. We'll wait and see. But right now, everyone is very much interested in how we can create more effective things called agents to do more things for us, right? To multiply us as human beings in our productivity and our outputs, right? So take those concepts away, all right? And you want to think in terms of agents now. We saw everything that kind of led up to agents. Many of the terms that I shared with you as well are terms that relate to agentive AI or agentic AI in that regard. And for us, just to bring it back to professionals, right? We understand that we have this mechanism now where as human beings, our responsibility or our role shifts to just directing things. We just have to define what we want done. Isn't that great? We don't have to think about how to get it done. We don't have to think about preparing certain things along the way to accomplish things. We just have to point in a direction and say, I want you to do X, Y, Z, right? And then we hand that off with enough foundation in terms of context and instructions off to the agents. The agents now work with the intelligence of the models, the operating procedures of the skills, and the capabilities of the tools. They outline their approach, and then they get stuff done for us. And that's our world right now. That is the holy grail in terms of us getting our time back as professionals so we can spend it on other things. Because there is technology that is almost as smart as we are. It's not quite there yet, that can act in our behalf in the digital sense. And we are primarily digital in this day and age, right? Good. So now with that, you have a foundation, you can name it, right? So now I want us to enter into the other segment to see where it pays off. But before I do that, I'd like to give everyone a few minutes, catch some air. I'll be here if you'd like to fill the silence with some questions. But effectively, we're going to take a break right now. Let's call it 10 minutes. And then when we return, we'll continue, all right, to see where it pays off. Good. So I'm opening up the floor for any questions that you might have. If everyone wishes to take a break, we've got 10 minutes. We'll be back here at, let's say, 20 past 11.
If I may, Eldon, there's a question in the chat from
Okay.
Tammy Pitamber. In fact, from Latoya, she said, how do you decide which is the best AI to use?
All right. So I'm going to distill that down because AI is a loaded term these days. And you can either interpret that as what is the best model to use, or you can interpret that as what is the best agent to use, or even what is the best harness to use. But I'm going to presume that as professionals, we are looking at the level of the agent. So what is the best agent that serves our needs as professionals? And there isn't a clear-cut answer to that. There isn't a silver bullet. But statistically or empirically speaking, for most professionals that have the budget, the agent that seems to be offering a lot of versatility for us to go towards, in my opinion, is Claude. I know there's some diehard ChatGPT users out there, but regarding the mission that Claude has and how it actually engages and the philosophy that it has to connect to other pre-existing systems that professionals typically use, like time tracking systems, productivity systems, project management systems, and the like, and even other external systems that generate videos and images and the like. You can do quite a bit with Claude as an agent if you are professional. So that is a commercially available single user tool that professionals should pay attention to. You can do a lot of composing, brainstorming with Claude Cowork or even the Claude Chat. If you are a developer, you can use Claude Code. All right. And with Claude Cowork, if you rely on external information from other systems, you can plug Claude and connect Claude to that. But of course, there is still a barrier. Claude is trying to make it, Anthropic is trying to make it as simple as possible for folks to set things up. But I believe that we can get even simpler when it comes to doing that. So I hope that answers the question in terms of the go-to. Not
There's
to say
a follow-up
that
question. Sorry to interject.
yeah.
There's a
No,
follow-up
okay,
question
yeah.
from Latoya.
Let's
Sorry,
see.
Eldon.
No,
She
no,
asked
no.
that Claude provides video present generation.
On its own, no. Claude does not do that. Claude can actually integrate with other systems through MCP, like Higgsfield. Higgsfield is specially designed to wield video and image generation models. I'll put the name in the chat. All right, so it's HIGGS-FALD. So you can Google Higgsfield. That's a popular one for video and image-based generations for most folks. It's popular among social media influencers because they do quite a bit of content creation through Higgsfield combined with the Claude agent. And Claude can connect with Higgsfield, tell Higgsfield what to generate, get the information back and relay it to the user. All right, so I see here, I use Claude. I found that Claude was able to detect errors generated by ChatGPT. Yeah, they're not always created equal. And to build on top of this, I usually use, as a developer, I use Claude Code in tandem with Cursor's composer model. And what I found is that even the Opus 4.8 may miss certain things that Cursor's composer model within Cursor itself can pick up. So as a developer, even the Claude Code area can kind of slouch in certain cases. But it's a minefield, everyone. It's, there's like a gazillion options out there. And what I'm hoping to do with us throughout this entire workshop is to distill all of the noise for you. So you have a very clear-cut, very straightforward, simple set of choices before you. So to start things off, I'd recommend, you head in the direction of Claude. You can start with a free account. You can upgrade to about a $20 US a month subscription, but you probably would burn through the limits quite readily. As power users or developers, you can go up to $100 a month if you've got the funding available. But there are other more cost-effective options out there if you are looking for those that we can go over. But let's see if is there any AI to help me learn coding? Yeah, quite a few. In the sense of learning coding, the AIs, Claude Code, for example, we just mentioned that, or Cursor, as they actually engineer things, I would actually recommend Cursor for that purpose and use the traditional interface through Cursor. Let me type that in. So Cursor for learning coding is way more transparent in terms of what code they generate and why. And it helps you to see in tandem, as you direct it to code things up, how it actually generates the code and puts the source files together. Cursor can impart a lot of its imbued knowledge to you if you're looking to learn how to code, because you're actually seeing the AI code up things as you direct it. Claude Code, unfortunately, masks that. It's not as easy to access the changes that it's making behind the scenes. And rightly so, it's not their philosophy. They want to make it as simple as possible. So I'd recommend Cursor if you want to learn how to code as you direct the AIs. All right. Let's see
Hi,
this.
Mr. Mark.
Yeah,
Good morning. Can I ask a question?
sure. Go ahead.
Oh, great, thanks. Excellent session so far, by the way. Very
Good.
informative. And one of the slides that you were talking about what AI is good at and what it doesn't, what's not good at. There was a point under the column, what's not good at, in relation to it doesn't own what you do, you do. I wonder if you can kind of elaborate on that, and if maybe in a general sense as well, if you can speak about what do we know about what all of these AI tools and agents actually do with our data, you know, in terms of ownership. I know it's a big legal area, but just some insights on that. Yeah.
Sure. So those are two different interpretations of owning things. So the first interpretation from my slides in terms of you have to own your output, not the AI, it really speaks of the fact that you are the source of your concepts, and you understand how your concepts should eventually materialize, not the AI. The AI is really a facilitator where that's concerned. So if you have a concept for a presentation, or if you have a concept for a report or a novel or something to that effect, you have to own your content and direct the AI, and then evaluate whether it has produced something that is in alignment with your own concepts. And that's what that ownership speaks about. You don't leave it to the AI to just go off on its own tangent, because it usually, maybe sometimes it presents something that's workable. But ultimately, I know all of us do this. If we're going to be using tools, we can get inspired by what AI happened onto, but ultimately we are the ones that pick apart. We choose the best parts, put it together with what we originally thought about, and we effectively are owning our own content and not letting the AI just present everything wholesale and then handing that off as our own. The other type of ownership we're gonna discuss with that. So as knowledge workers that are stepping into the role of intelligence workers, you have to draw the line when it comes to presenting your information to these tools, because you might have seen the news, data is a very, very valuable commodity, especially in the age of AI. Companies pay tons of money for training data. What these free AI tools do, and I can name a few, like even chat free, if you're not paying for ChatGPT, chat it has certain settings that are on by default that you need to be fully informed of. And I'll get to this later on in the presentation, where it will opt you in to sharing your own information and chats and what have you to help improve the model. You got to pay attention to those. And typically what I do, I'd search for that first, uncheck it. Especially if it's a free tool, you uncheck that. That way you can use the tool, present to it relatively, not too sensitive, but relatively, private information, numbers and what have you. And based on that, it will not cycle that into its own parametric knowledge for the next version of the model, so that other folks might happen on to a certain pathway or a certain piece of information that you would have fed it in your engagements previously. So in terms of ownership, you need to ensure that you recognize that you own your own data. And these tools are hungry for it. And you have to enter into the right mindset to safeguard that. Unless you're a very generous person. Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so I would normally use Chat GPT like let's say 3 times out of the week for work related stuff. And let's say the week before or 2 weeks before I'm using it again, I normally would just type out the email myself and just put it in chat and tell chat to improve it. Let's say a while has passed. For some reason, every time when I go back into Chat GPT, like some of the information that I think would have been erased from the initial time that I sent it, it would normally be there, even though it was a new chat, because we're not currently paying for ChatGPT. We're using the free version. So, after a certain amount of information that you give it, whether they generate image for you or whatever the case may be, they would normally say, okay, your free trial is ended, you have to start a new chat. So every day I would normally start a new chat, but I would like to know why is it that information, let's say from like a month back, I can go on the computer now, go on the chat GPT, and that information is like, all right, let's say if I ask them about typing out an email for an interview, they're gonna reference back the email that I sent a while ago. Why is it that the information is still there even though it's a new chat? That's my question basically.
Right. So what ChatGPT as a harness does is that it allows the model to access what we call long memory. So ChatGPT has some software in place that is designed to keep track of your very extended history of chats and exchanges with the AI over time. And it organizes it in such a way whereby it can feed it to the model automatically behind the scenes so that the model is informed about something that happened like weeks or days or months ago, for that matter, so that it has enough context to be more meaningful to you. So it's not a situation whereby your information is fed back into the model. No, that's particularly scoped to your session as long as you maintain your session. And that's what's been happening there. So there's just some software in place that is able to simulate human long-term memory for the AIs so that it can pull up the information whenever the context is relevant for it. Right?
Okay, it normally happens like if I use it for like personal use. Let's say for instance I consider ChatGPT my BFF because I will ask it literally any and everything. So let's say for instance I'm having an headache. I took a pill to try to see if that's gonna stop it, and I noticed that it didn't stop it. So I'll then go ahead and ask Chat like what other what else can I basically use to ease this headache? And let's say like 2 weeks before that, I ask them, okay, what's the best exercise to lose like belly fat? And then chat will go ahead and ask me my age, and then I'll probably put the age in at that time, like 2 weeks ago. And then they're gonna reference that back to me saying, okay, it's probably for my age, I should be doing this, and my age I should be doing that. So sometimes it actually caused me to think like, okay, is chat spying on me? Because how is it that this information is still referencing back, even though it was a while ago?
It's
So
magical.
that is really
It's all very, very clever. It's very, very clever software engineering. That's what it is. It seems magical. It's just a program.
Okay.
It's just a program. Like I mentioned earlier, the memory is software. It's just a mechanism that's encoded so that it feeds the model. The model itself does not remember anything. The model only has its limited context window. But the software on top or around that model, which is ChatGPT itself, not the GPT 5 point whatever that's running the experience, that ChatGPT layer has memory management inside of it, and it has your little chat window, and it remembers your session across all of the other multitudes of sessions out there. It's all fancy engineering. That's what it is. Geared to create that experience that chat's your best friend. Sorry to burst the bubble.
That's okay. I have another question. So
Sure.
at work, our CEO, she's currently in the process of making, well, I work at a medical school, and she's currently in the process of making the school go paperless. So everything is going to be digitally. So she is now working with some programmers to have like each of the staff should have like their own personal AI bot, basically. So let's say for instance I'm not at work. The bot is gonna know all of the information and do because I have two jobs at work. So it's basically gonna be my AI assistant.
Mhm.
So like in cases where like how would they get this bot to like store all of the information like pertaining to let's okay, I am the admin assistant and I'm the admissions officer from at the university. So let's say it's an admissions related question. How would chat store up this information to just give it to the probably another staff if I'm not there to physically type in the information to give it to them? How would they do that?
There are a number of different ways. The short answer again is really just fancy programming. So what it does, it uses a special database. I think that is what largely most of those solutions do, even though some of them are moving on to a more upgraded technology. They use a specially designed database called a vector database. And it takes documents, facts, information that's specific to the domain and encodes it. And then the AI is able to actually, not the model itself, but the software around the model is able to query that information and present it to the AI model whenever the conversation requires it. So you can store vast amounts of information about the history of your entire company, all of the procedures and the like, in a specially designed database. And the software layer around the AI model is able to pluck the right piece of information and then feed it to the model. And then the model is able to answer the question. Fancy engineering.
Okay,
All right,
so
we're a little
what
over time.
this
Yeah, go
pardon
ahead.
me?
Let's wrap this up and then we can
Yeah,
jump
this is
back
the
into
last
it.
question. Sorry. Would this, well, does it have like a number of gigabytes? Like it comes with like different numbers put into the plan that you choose?
Well, yeah, naturally. So if it's like a chat GPT that's being offered to the public, there's a freemium model, and then there are different tiers. And depending on the tier, you can do more with it, which includes store more on it and access more of it in meaningful ways. But different providers have different models that they employ that rely on saying that this tier will have X amount of storage available. There are services out there, numerous services out there that offer you the ability to put a whole bunch of documents in place and then it presents an agent that is knowledgeable about all of those documents. And then you can ask or you can expose it to the public and have the public ask questions against the documents. And they charge based on how much storage you need to store all of your documents as well as how many tokens. And then they have different packages and structures, but yeah. All right. Good. I love the engagement. I believe this is enriching the entire workshop. So we'll have another segment where we can have more of an open conversation. But the next leg of this, now that we're all back, I know that there are queued up questions in the chat. I'll circle around to those again. But we need to progress to the next segment of this, and then we can have more of an open discussion leading off. All right. So I want to present to you this mirror, because to understand anything new, to understand any possibility, we need to relate it to the thing that we can actually identify with first, and we build upon that. So the mirror segment deals with presenting to you what you are usually accustomed to as a knowledge worker, because everyone up until this point will be considered at least to be a knowledge worker by classification as professionals, because we use the internet, we use emails, we consume knowledge, we search for stuff, we do things. In the agentive AI era, knowledge workers are like dinosaurs. Instead, we must look towards transitioning ourselves to become intelligence workers. Intelligence workers operate a little differently, actually far differently than knowledge workers. So I wanted to present to you the split screen, that mirror between what you currently are and what you can potentially become. All right. So let's take this, and there are a few scenarios like this that I'm going to be presenting in series. The knowledge worker, typical day as a professional, you do your best with what you have. You're resourceful to a point, but much of that resourcefulness comes from you, and much of the actuation and stuff like that in terms of getting things done will come from you as well, even though you use computers and tools and so forth. All right. But you have to start things off. You have to be the one to open up that new Word document with the blank page and bullet point things out and the like, right? And it takes a number of hours before you get to that polished output. But on the other hand, the intelligence worker uses AI from the start. They understand how to wield it to get the right points to catapult them forward. They don't necessarily start with a blank page. They start with a directive for the AI. And the AI produces a draft, which they then iteratively go through, take out all of the good things, and then continue to direct that AI towards a nicely polished outcome. And what they do at the end of the day is that they reclaim a ton of hours that the knowledge worker would traditionally have to spend, right? And if they keep doing that, and they typically do in different ways, in different scenarios, the amount of time recovered compounds at the end of it. And this is what I want all of us to really absorb. The amount of time that you can save over an entire year, if you wield AI properly, can be spent more meaningfully elsewhere to do more things, or to do things that you would otherwise not have the time to do. So let's look at another one, right? Scribbling notes. You're in a meeting, right? And you just had a meeting and you need to compose everything and put minutes together and the like. So in the meeting, you have to, make notes. Sometimes if you're the only one running the meeting, for example, you're going to have to, in between discussing things, you're going to have to take the moment to jot things down. Your focus is divided, right? And these are real world scenarios where at the end of the day, what you have may be little jottings, not necessarily the full detail, and they're things that may slip through the cracks. But the intelligence worker uses the right tools. They rely on the AI to be there in the meeting with them, capture the transcript, summarize on behalf afterwards, look at all of the action items that the AI has actually distilled from the transcript so that they can then move forward. They get to focus on that meeting 100%. And they get to listen fully, all right? So let me take you here, right? Going back over your previous meetings with your jottings and producing next steps and the like, versus letting the AI and directing the AI in terms of inserting itself into that particular scenario. It can save you as much as 4 to 5 minutes, right? When you think about it. And if we multiply that 4 to 5 minutes within your typical day, in terms of distilling meeting notes and the like. And if you multiply that on average across a week, 5 times a week, 5 days a week, and if we think about the quality that the AI produces at the end of it, remember it's fully captured transcripts that AI will have at its disposal. You can rate it around 4 out of 5 in terms of the quality that you get at the end of the day if you would otherwise do it yourself, right? And these measurements here are what I'd like us to really pay attention to in terms of how we can quantify that leverage, that AI leverage that we can look forward to. So let's take another scenario, reports and documents. I know I for one, have to do this. We have a backlog of different documents and reports to get done. It takes hours. Just putting everything together, even though you may have specimens and formats and so forth. If you're doing it as a knowledge worker, you literally have to go and write yourself, compose yourself, review yourself. You can round robin that so that you escape the saturated goggle effect and get other individuals to comment on what you may have missed otherwise. But it's largely manual and formatting. Geez, I mean, even to this day, with Microsoft Word, for example, stuff jumps around. You spend a lot of time in terms of formatting things just to get them to sit right on the page. But the intelligence worker instead saves a ton of time. right? So 3 hours, they work on average of 40 minutes per document, if you will, right? From a structured draft. And it has everything because you would have given it all the raw materials that it needs to produce the document that you have in mind. And then all you pretty much do in that 40 minutes is really just review it, tweak a few things, and then you grab it to the end of the day. And you can save roughly around 2 hours a day. If the frequency, let's say we do it 4 times a month, just on average, but the quality lift is around 4 out of 5. It's pretty good with AI in terms of how it's able to format things and lay things out. And of course, what it produces there has no grammatical issues and the like. So you can be confident in the fact that it produces something that can be well read. Here's another scenario, research and synthesis. That takes a bit. For those of us who may be studying and doing literature reviews and the like, we know how grueling that can be. But we can start, I think this is pretty modest in terms of quantifying that, 90 minutes tab by tab. So we've got a different number of papers across the tabs, different number of articles. We have to go ourselves, even though the internet's helped us to fetch that, we have to be the consolidator of all of that information to know exactly what to pluck from where based on what we're writing and what we're trying to prove, and then synthesize down that, reference it. And after a while, depending on what you're researching, you can lose sight of certain things and certain details, right? But the intelligence worker, leveraging AI, instead of 90 minutes, down to 20 minutes. AI is exceedingly good at this stuff because it's built on that textual foundation, that vast amount of information. And guess what? Research says we can hold about 6 to 7 objects at most in our organic brain. Depending on the AI model that's at work there in the context window that's there, you're looking at an astronomical number of objects and variables and pathways and concepts that the AI can simultaneously and in parallel consider. And it's able to do that exceedingly well, superhuman capabilities in terms of that quality. And it's able to distill that down and present to you all of that information that you would have otherwise spent a ton of time synthesizing and gathering yourself. And then you can act. On average, 70 minutes a day, quality lift, 4 out of 5 in terms of AI. Presentations and decks. This one is an example of that. For something of this quality, and I will tell you this, I would have had to start probably at least a month ago on this trip. What you're witnessing, including the website that you went to take that test, was done during this week alone. And this produced not only this particular day one, or rather session one presentation based on my concepts, but it also produced the day two, and there's some resources that I'm going to share with you as well as part of the workshop. That's also generated from that directive and that iteration. I would say in total, if I were to quantify it, I would have spent at most a day and a half preparing for the entire series, including that website that you just went to take that test. So you're looking at presentations and decks, 2.5 hours building slides by hand. I know it's painful to just get them right, starting from a blank deck, and then you structure and you go about iterating over them. But an intelligence worker, instead of 2.5 hours, roughly 40 minutes. As long as you bring the concepts, bring the context, and then you iterate with your AI, you can do that in a fraction of the time. Fully structured, super polished, and of course, you still obviously have to own the content. And that's really the only thing that's pulling on your time. Saves around 2 hours a day if you do this on a regular basis. If you do that, let's say 3 times a month, we're looking at a quality lift, I would say around 3 out of 5. The reason why it's not higher than that is because visual things AI can get wrong easily. So you have to be very explicit with it when it has to really generate out those visual things. So there are a number of different iterations given your particular standard that you'll have to go through with the AI to get right. So quality lift is still notable, but it's not quite as high as the others in terms of textual things. Proposals and pitches, similar idea, 4 hours from a blank page versus 50 minutes. All right. You're looking at being able to pass to the AI as a knowledge worker, the specimen of the structure and the format in there. If it's financial proposals, what we typically do is that we have a rubric and we pass the rubric into the AI as well as a specimen format and just tell the AI the requirements and it puts together everything else. And it presents that. Of course, in certain scenarios, we will have to review that and tweak certain things, but it's all formulaic at that level and we save a ton of time. 3 hours a day, depending on the frequency, 3 times a month. And the quality lift is that good because of the fact that it's all textual and you can present to it very structured information, such as a pricing rubric, and it produces gold almost every time. Data and spreadsheets. This is where it also shines. Large data sets, different formulas and stuff like that. The AI can write all of that and tune all of that for you. So you don't have to do it. You just need to describe it, give it enough raw information, and then tell it how to present it. You can save up to 90 minutes a week if you think about it, depending on how frequently you do this. And the quality lift is around 4 out of 5. Planning and status updates. AI is really good as a brainstorming companion because it has a lot of expert domains all baked into it. So if you're thinking about, let's say, financial planning, if you're thinking about creative design related planning, if you're thinking about even, let's say, entrepreneurial planning in terms of your business model and the like, it's very, very good at brainstorming with. So a knowledge worker would have otherwise had to go through that long and drawn out process of finding the domain knowledge and getting enough insights themselves. But leveraging models, we can get easy drafts to just kick our cogs into gear, and we are able to fast track to this very clear representation in a very short space of time. Depending on how frequently you do it, the assumption is you can save around 50 minutes a week, and the quality lift is around 3 out of 5. And it compounds. So in those scenarios, a single knowledge worker turned intelligence worker can save up to 200 hours a year. That translates to 5 full work weeks. You can recover 5 whole weeks. You can recover a year by employing, and this is, again, these are modest numbers, by employing AI and directing AI appropriately in terms of what you do. All right. Now, the intelligence worker is the fundamental operative in any company or organization, which is why I love this particular series, because we are hitting at the foundation of every company, every organization, every team that you can think of within this vicinity. And this is where we should start with AI. Companies at that level are trying to bring AI in from the top. No, it needs to start with you guys. It needs to start with the professionals, because it will compound up from this level. Because after you wield this effectively, there will be residual and organic benefits to the wider team that you're a part of. But there's also going to be a need at the company or organization level to leverage all of that effectively, because everyone needs to be coordinated and work together. And there's something that I'm going to share with you. It's not fully launched yet, but it's something that we've come up with after working with a number of different companies and organizations over the years, hearing their challenges when it comes to AIs and coordinating things, to help companies and organizations at that team-based and departmental-based levels to leverage AI meaningfully, as well as empower those professionals that run those organizations. And the website that you're at alludes to it to some degree, and it's called Integral. And you're going to be the first. really, to jump into that particular environment and see what is possible in terms of what Integral can bring. It's really a combination of all of the experience and the know-how that we've amassed over the years as an answer to what organizations require in this generative AI era that will not only serve an individual professional's needs, but also an organizational, the needs of an organization or a company in that regard. Just a little shameless plug about what we're working on. But again, this is all about sharing and showing what's possible as we go. Good. So to wrap up on their circumstances, again, those were scenarios, those are averages, but this is grounded in research, right? It's grounded in research and the sources are listed here. We can see that with the right application of AI, we can take 40% less time with an 18% quality increase in doing what we typically would have done as knowledge workers, right? We can do things 25% faster with a 12% increase in output. And we can do coding for those of us who actually build software 55% faster on actual code and products that are out there. These are real numbers based on real studies. And this is what the agentive era presents to us. But what I see and what I'd like you to see as well in terms of this, you get your time back. That is the most meaningful reward out of all of that. And time is something that is the priceless resource of mankind as we stand here in this moment. All right. But here's the reality as well in terms of AI. Across the board, like I said, when I presented the analogy of fire and us discovering fire to the point at which we can effectively wield it, there's quite a lot of AI spread. So as of now, there's 88% of organizations that use AI in some way, shape, or form, in at least one function or the other. Not to necessarily mean that they're using it effectively, but they're using it. Some of them are paying for it in a huge way because a lot of money, like I told you, even the tech companies themselves are still trying to figure out how to properly wield this newfound tech. Ironic, right? And they are paying literally billions per year for something that they're still trying to figure out how to maximize and optimize. And we're in this space where we've discovered it just a few years ago, and we're going through a lot of missteps, hoping that we don't, burn our huts down in the process, to make use of this thing that we can identify that has potential, but we really don't know how to direct it just yet. But the unique thing about this series is that we would have gone through the missteps on your behalf, and we're sharing with you a measurable and proven way in which we can actually direct this thing. So just to break down this statistic here, so 71% generally or regularly use Gen AI across an average of 3 functions in their day-to-day. 63% use it for writing, 25% use it for code, and it's continually spreading. So there are certain safe things that we can adopt with regards to shifting from the knowledge worker tradition to the intelligence worker methodology using AI that are low-hanging fruits. They're easy to engage with. But we still need to pay attention to the systemic view of all of this. How does it all connect together? Because the meaningful thing after the individual professional gets a handle of it is how can we systemically sustain it at a team-based level or at an organizational level? And that's the real question mark right now. But you'll have to understand the technology. You'll have to understand what it can and can't do. And you'll have to have a big picture perspective with a lot of case studies to really distill that down and understand what is the answer to that real compelling question. And this is the real statistic I want to have you pay attention to. 67% of companies are still stuck with AI pilots. and fewer than 1 in 5 companies are able to track results. So there's a lot of money going in. There's no real ROI just yet, but we believe that we figured that out. And I can't wait until session 2 to give you a glimpse of that. All right. So let's think about leverage. All right. And leverage is what, as the professional, we need to pay attention to. We need to qualify what is our AI leverage. So I shared with you some scenarios where you can see the idea of moving from a knowledge worker to an intelligence worker and identify a potential quantifiable shift. How much time you get back, how much quality you're able to multiply, and how much you're able to do. All right. So in addition to that, I've prepared another exercise for you where you can do your own leverage audit. Okay, 7 steps. It's not the brief 60-second self-check, but this is another self-check where you will be challenged to identify your nodes or your tasks on a day-to-day basis, the things that you typically spend time on, put those values in, and get your own particular AI leverage score. And that AI leverage score represents how much time you potentially will be able to recover if AI is directed properly in your day-to-day. All right. So this is what the math is behind the whole idea of this rubric for calculating your leverage. You're going to look at a task or a node, and you're going to identify, typically, at least the system that we built is able to recommend, based on some predefined things that you would do, an average of the amount of minutes that AI can save you doing it. It multiplies that by 52 weeks in a year. And then it gets you the amount of hours that you can get back. That's quantifiable. And then it multiplies that by the quality lift. And that's going to be your leverage score. So this was designed specifically for this workshop. And it's another very important artifact, as important as the one that you took earlier with your assessment of where you stand with AI. This gives you a target of where you can actually go with it. So with that, I'm going to give you some time. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. All right. Where you can take this particular test, put your information in to get an idea of how much time you can potentially recover in your typical day-to-day. All right. Leverage. Okay, that's it. So you can click on that link in the chat and it will take you to a similar page like the earlier one. You can take a look at the sample report, what that'll look like when you finish the task. But when you're ready to take it, click on Start the Leverage Audit and move through and put your information in. If there are any questions along the way, feel free to drop it in the chat in terms of how to get through that. But we've made it as simple as possible. Go right ahead, start your leverage audit. All right, you've got 15 minutes. Okay, drop any questions that you might have in the chat during this time. If you need any assistance, I'll be happy to help. So see what your leverage is. All right, I'm back. So, Miriam, give me some more insight into your message. You said yours is blocked. Is anyone else having trouble accessing the leverage audit? Okay. Yes, yeah, I do see submissions coming through, which is good. All right, so for those of you, excuse me, for those of you who are having trouble accessing the audit, let me know the details of what you see, what you're experiencing. That's odd. I don't think the locale should have any implication on that. Let me confirm. No, doesn't matter where you are. Sure.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm having some issues with the signal. I keep coming out and off. Okay, good. I see it. Thanks so much.
Good thing. All right. So for those of you who finished the audit, feel free to fill the silence with some questions if you want to resume questions. I think just scrolling back up, I believe there were some questions here.
Hi, Eldon. I think I have a question.
Hi, Linda. Yes.
Hi, how you doing? So, a quick one. I heard all what was said before regarding how AI makes life a lot easier. In writing, I'm normally quite a concise writer, and I think I get very annoyed when I get long missives that take me so long to understand. Maybe at the last paragraph, that's when the ask is coming forward. And I find that in using AI, a lot of people who in the past were noted type of people, thank you, respond directly, now becomes extremely wordy and actually defeats the purpose of the communication. So what can you advise, especially when you've used AI to make it yours, to those persons? Because that has been a major challenge for me.
I understand. I completely empathize as well. We should design a special workshop just for that, because it'll take more than just a simple response to that question to start things off. But I can share my techniques. Well, as anyone would have casually observed, AI has a certain signature in terms of how it generates its own content. It uses odd symbols. That's a dead giveaway. Those weird looking less than or equal to signs and other symbols like that, extra long hyphen and stuff like that. That gets wrapped up in there. The other symptom again is its verbosity. It's just too lengthy when it really should just go straight to the point. The idea is we want to leverage as much of AI as possible. Writing in a traditional sense should be reserved for certain things. That's what I particularly do. One of the approaches in terms of doing that is really getting enough of your own writing style, as much of it as possible, as samples, and you can include that in your context while you ask the AI to produce whatever it is that it must produce. In addition to including samples of your own writing, you can instruct the AI to use it, to analyze it and use it to generate the output. You can also instruct the AI to ensure that the output is as terse or as lengthy as you wish. And then you have to explicitly instruct it not to write like an AI. That's really the magical part of it. So the AI, you can say that you need to ensure that the expression matches the samples. Do not use any odd AI-related symbols and fillers or punctuation for that matter, right? And that's the beauty about it. So as long as you give the AI enough instruction and context in the form of samples, then it will get the job done the way we expect it to get it done. And even if it doesn't produce something that is within your expectation, you can go back around and iterate, and you can say, polish this up, do this instead of that. But it takes a few iterations, and that there is the challenge. Some of us are looking for quick outputs, and it's easy for us to just give it a sharp instruction, copy and paste. But we have to be disciplined about that as we go forth. But there are techniques. There clearly are techniques in terms of getting the AIs to pay attention to certain details so that it generates outputs the way that we would. Yeah.
Noted, and thank you.
Yes. Excellent. Let me go back to other questions. Okay, so I see here my problem with AI is when I have to do research for UG, and most of the information that I collected mostly contain AI, even though I use tools to detect the AI, it's not accurate. There's an app that could tell me of the notes that I have. Oh, yeah. So this here, in terms of your typical Turnitin detector, AI detector in your writing and the like, there's quite a controversy, quite a bit of controversy around these types of tools. Some of them, I can say unequivocally that these AI detection tools are not foolproof because they use AI themselves. As a result, you'll find that individuals who would have written entire paragraphs on their own, based on their own inspiration and the like, will pass these writings through these tools, and the tools will say that it has 90% AI or 80% AI or the like. And that's the controversy as part of this. These tools here that are somehow trusted to a great degree by institutions are not foolproof. While there are tools out there that can get even AI-generated text down to an acceptable limit, they do work to an extent. There's also the other side of the coin whereby, again, these existing tools that are adopted are not 100% foolproof. And what you're speaking of here is the fact, is that very fact, whereby you're experiencing that you would have rewritten, you would have tried different tools to rewrite it so that it does not have that high degree of AI detected statements in it. But the tools still highlight that as AI. So the bottom line is there is no foolproof tool that I can recommend, simply because the tools that are out there to detect are not foolproof themselves. What I've identified, however, is that those tools that are out there that detect have actually been trained up on existing academic writing. So, for example, there was a paper that I wrote back in 2008 or 2009. And just for the fun of it, I passed it through one of those writing detection tools, and it got a 0 AI score. And I wasn't surprised, simply because those AI detection tools are leveraging papers, manuscripts, anything that they can get their hands on that are fully available to train up and be the reference of human. And what you find is that anything that sort of strays away from those, the original reference point training data, whereby before generative AI came about in such a commercial scale, they would deem that as human. And anything else, according to other stipulations, they would deem that as having some degree of AI, which can create false positives. So again, I'm sorry. I mean, under the circumstances, it's not a clear-cut situation whereby we can identify a tool that can completely remove any trace of AI. Even if, like I mentioned, in certain cases, you'll have yourself just write these things on your own. Somehow it's going to be flagged some way, shape, or form because it does not comply with the corpus of information that existed before AI came along that was used for training. So there's a flaw in their design. But hopefully with time, we'll have something that's a bit more reliable. All right, let's see.
Hi, good day, everyone. I have a really quick question. So, for someone that has tons of tasks to do on a daily basis, right? When I say tons, I mean like tons. And you have different reminders. Probably you set it on your phone, you set notes, try to organize your notes. Then you find yourself in a position of having several reminders, several notes. And it is very hard sometimes to keep track of everything because you're already busy. And when your phone alarms or your reminder pops up, it's like you don't have time to actually browse through to see what everything here is about. So you just see the first thing on top of that note and be like, oh, I have to do this at this time, right? So just to give a bit deeper context, let's say you have, just using general examples, you have to wash a car. And within this car note, you have to clean the engine, you have to do everything car related. You have a next note, at 6, you have this meeting, and a next note at 2, you need to pick up the dog. All right. How can AI or which tool in AI be integrated into our phones? And I know the phone has some levels of AI to it, right? So make these tasks a bit more organized, one. Let me stick there for now. A bit more organized so that you don't have like tons of tasks all over the place. And note, yes, you could do it yourself, but again, because you have so many other things going on and so many times, what can we do in that regard? How could AI help in this aspect?
I know, I feel your pain. I mean, as professionals, we always have a gazillion pots on the fire at any point in time. And even the most organized among us have trouble keeping track and staying on top of things. Now, part of the solution comes down to non-AI approaches. Let's not even think about AI before then. Non-AI approaches would mean, how are you actually tracking everything that you need to get done? Right? Are you doing it in a strategic, organized fashion? Are you able to go into a single source of all of the things that you need to get done and know what's next on the list? So we need to make sure that that's taken care of, because if you have things jotted down left, right, and center in your brain across a number of different mediums, it's going to be difficult inherently. So we'll need to start there. And that in itself constitutes getting your data ready for AI to take over. Because as long as you're able to properly organize your real world life and the things that you have to do in a fashion that the AI can query, can view, it can then reliably help you thereafter. So the first step, you need to make sure that you're tracking in a centralized and organized and digital manner, so that then you can unleash the AI on top of that. Now, there are different other tools out there, one's born every minute, because in this era, we go from zero to innovation in 3 seconds flat. So there are products out there that are taking different approaches at helping you to track better, informing you and reminding you, even ranking your tasks based on their understanding of them, right? So I won't go through the list of different tools that you might have available to you, but the point of the matter is that as long as you're able to organize that information, you can use just about any agentive harness to stitch together, based on your tracked tasks, a way in which that the AI can actively assist in the very least as reminding you, and it can go a step further in terms of organizing and scheduling the things that you need to get done, as long as it's giving enough context. So the journey itself from there, first get it organized in a centralized area where the AI can actually query it. Thereafter is really tailoring it by interfacing with the AI. So I mentioned Claude earlier. You can attempt to use ChatGPT if you have enough privileges to connect it with certain other systems that hold your tasks, for that matter. And with Claude, however, Claude has the ability to allow you to patch through to it certain MCPs and certain skills that would allow it to go beyond its own window, even communicate with you over email, over WhatsApp, right? It can look into your existing calendar. It can look into your to-do list, as long as you connect everything up together. And then you can direct Claude and say, here's all of the things I need to get done this week. I want you to organize them for me. If you need more context in any of them, ask me questions and I'll provide them. I want you to be able to send me daily email-based plans for what I need to get done and when. So you become the orchestrator as long as you're leveraging the right tools. And then the tools themselves, Claude, for example, you can connect those to the other parts of it. You can even go as far as saying, I want you to message me on Telegram or what have you, as a reminder for what I need to get done, because I'm usually on the road, right? And
sorry, if I must interject here real quickly, I'm really happy for that information. Really and truly helped a lot. Especially the part where you mentioned you could literally tell Claude, for instance, hey, I want you to send me an email or a text around this time. Also, what really stood out to me, which I really liked, is the ranking aspects of things, because as much as we may be like, okay, 1, 2, 3 stuff, number 2 is more important than number 1, right? And this AI tool should be able to help in this regard. Not fully off topic, but lastly, once upon a time, my device was able to listen to my voice and be able to write or type the task. This came in very handy because I would oftentimes be driving and have like a ton of stuff I have to do. However, Apple, I think Siri, is really good on this part. But when you're using an Android, right, this is a part where you don't have that extreme leverage. Is there any tool, right, that could assist, especially when operating a motor vehicle, where you could just talking to your phone quickly and say, hey, 2:00, I have a meeting at XYZ location. I have to have these notes, kindly, whatever. Okay, XYZ, Mr. Thomas, we have saved this for you at 2:00. We will remind you 15 minutes before. That right there, I mean, it might seem outrageous, but that right there would really make half of my task much, much easier.
Right. No, I hear you. And again, these are the types of conversations that I value, simply because they present nuances, because of the fact that we can now do more with tech, but it's not yet quite built out the way that you've described it. By virtue of actually having that conversation, I'm sure folks are already thinking about that and directing it in this way. No, there's Gemini and Android. There's Apple Intelligence, the new and improved Siri over iOS devices as well. And what they're doing, they're pushing the envelope in terms of how these agents that sit on the mobile devices can interface with the apps on those devices to get the jobs done intelligently, without you having to explain, open this, do that, open that, do this, and so forth. So it's emerging as we speak. That very scenario that you described, that full hands-free coordination, the manufacturers on their latest handsets are pushing forth that technology already, right? So you'll see it more commonplace as we go. Right?
All right, thanks tons. And I thank you also, team, for the persons in the room. would have mentioned some softwares that could help. Trust me, I would have used some of them, right? I think somebody mentioned KSB or I can't remember the exact name of that. But the thing about those softwares is that, at least based on my experiences, they don't save this information as accurate as you'd like. So you still have to go and probably put the 7th instead of the 17th because of how it picked it up. But thank you guys so much for that update. I really hope that they bring it online much sooner than later.
Great, great. All right. So let's head back. This is going to be the final segment of the workshop for this session. What was the take on the leverage audit? How many persons had their eyes opened quite a bit in terms of their leverage audit? If you think your score in terms of the potential recovered time is pretty high, feel free to share it in the chat. Let's just get an idea of some of the hours that you can get back on a yearly basis if you're able to leverage AI appropriately. Can we see some of those scores? Anyone crossed like 300 hours? Wow, 500? Wow, that's amazing. That's tremendous. Anyone else? All right.
So something that I found while doing the leverage is that they the things that I normally do with AI and the fact that I'm doing multiple things in terms of, the teaching aspect, and I have some amount of supervision to do there, and going UG at the same time. I try to balance all of that. So AI is one of the tools that I use me with that. So when I saw the hours, I was like, this makes a lot of sense, honestly, because a lot of the information and so forth that came out of it was very true. So as much as I saw the 500, I also understood why exactly I would have gotten such a high amount as well.
Right, right. And this is the impact that I'm hoping to have you guys experience here. Unless we quantify the potential of what this tech can bring, we're not as incentivized to work towards it. So this is the real purpose of that leverage audit, knowing what your potential future self, your intelligence worker self can strive towards is critical. So now with regards to the initial self-check, you understand where you stand. With the leverage audit, you understand where you can go, all right? And it's just a matter of putting in that work to get you there. And I'm going to help you along as best as I can with regards to the time that we have left today, as well as in our next session. All right, so just to crystallize around that, we want to refocus our mindsets in terms of what AI can do for us, the roles that the AI can play in our lives. You would have recently done your leverage audit. We would have gone through various scenarios in terms of how we can insert AIs to get the time back. But I really want you to refocus and concretize this in your mind. An AI with the right harness, with the right agentive wrapper, can become your creative companion. Many of us can identify with this. Some of us love our chat GPTs. We go to it to get ideas, to draft things out. Lean into that because it is a multiplier when it comes to our innate human creativity. When we got to go out there for information, remember these things are, even though it hallucinates, they're still trained up on the entirety of the internet. And it's approaching the point at which, when we really sit back and recognize it, these models are holding within them the fully documented collection of human knowledge. And to a great degree, they also have within them our imprinted pathways in terms of thinking, in terms of expressing ourselves, that can give the knowledge that these things have absorbed and assimilated a way in which they can be leveraged and delivered whenever we direct them appropriately to do so. So AIs can become our research and data assistants as well, if we ensure that we direct properly and we fact check appropriately. And again, like I mentioned, right now everyone's crazy about the fact that it's not just this source of information, but it's actually a source of actuation. It can go out there, it can get things done within our digital spaces for us. And now they're building these androgynous looking robots. It's an amazing time to be alive, because we have pretty much dropped an atomic bomb when it comes to our maximization of productivity, our creativity, our expression in the tech and tools that we have in our time. And I need you guys to wake up to that and understand it and leverage it appropriately. So we have our task agents as well. So these are the 3 crystallized, concretized roles that you need to take away with you in terms of thinking and actually working with AI as you go forth. And like we saw there, it's not a situation whereby there's a silver bullet. You need to know when to use what aspect of AI appropriately, right? So those particular roles, you want to engage the creative companion side of AI when you're looking at starting from scratch, when you have blank page work. You want to look at engaging the research and data assistance side of AI when you have to do any research or synthesis or reading and synthesis of information. And then, of course, if you do things on a repeatable basis with predictable steps that you could otherwise offset to get time back, that's where you engage your task agent role of AI to get things done in your behalf so that you can take your time back. All right. Now, I wanted to throw this in here because it's important for all of us to understand how to communicate with AI. Many of us take to our chat GPTs and our Claudes and the like, and we just spit out, I want XYZ, or create a blog for me, or something to that effect. But there's a particular way that works really well, especially if you're dealing with these types of models that are presented in a chat-based interface, such as DeepSeek. Some of you might have heard of DeepSeek. It's like there's a research lab in China that's doing quite a lot with very little, and they've produced a chat GPT answer, but it's built on models that are relatively superior typically. So you can go to chat.deepseek.com and chat with it. Those types of chat-based agents, those harnesses, do well when it comes to proper direction and instructions. And this is what we consider prompting or prompt engineering to be. The way that we actually express our instructions to the AIs will make a difference, simply because the way that the AI models are built, they have so much information across so many domains that if you're unable to instruct it to localize and to activate its certain subdomains that it has, it will sort of veer away and not give you as quality it won't give you that quality that you expect. So prompt engineering, or properly prompting AIs, is a matter of it can be considered to be AI literacy in this day and age. It's really your ability to speak to the AI. So I wanted to include this as a quick guide in terms of how you can employ proper prompting techniques to get the most out of your chat-based AIs moving forward. So it starts with telling the AI what role it needs to assume. So you would say something like, act as the best efficiency expert in the world. And then you want to give it enough context about what problem, or more instructions about what you want to do. All right. So once you give it enough context with that particular role, you move on to expressing to it, telling it explicitly, and oftentimes you want to bullet point these things: do this, do that, and then do that. So you want to give it a number of different tasks in the form of instructions after you give it context. And of course, you want to tell it how you'd like the information to be relayed to you once it's finished. Make it short, make it terse, make it lengthy, make it colorful, make it into a table, make it into a diagram, or whatever it is that you'd like in terms of your format. It's very simple, RCTF, role, context, task, format. Structure your prompts this way, you'll get way more, about 3 times more quality out of your chat-based AIs than otherwise. All right. So here's an example. And I'm sure all of us are kind of guilty. When I started off, when I was playing with this thing, when it just came out, that was me. Do this, give me that. But I learned about the science of it and learned about how it actually works under the hood. And then I got even more out of it. So this is what you want to aim for over here. Act as XYZ. So in this scenario, it's saying act as a personal finance expert. That's the role. Writing for millennials new to investing. That's the context. Generate 5 blog ideas. That's the task. As a bulleted list with a 1-line description each. That's the format. You follow this pattern every single time with your chat-based AIs, and they would naturally give you way more of what you're looking for. That will require less time for you to iterate through the results, getting it to where you'd like to take it. So use your RCTF approach. There are other variations to this technique, but this one pretty much would help you tremendously as you go forth in engaging your chat-based AIs, whichever ones that you currently use. So you can try it out, right? And this is where I want to, again, concretize. We, as knowledge workers, previous knowledge workers, were once the executors. We did a lot of the work ourselves. The role that AI, now that it's way more capable than we were accustomed to in the previous generation, the role that AI has shifted us towards is not one of an orchestrator, not one of an executor, rather whereby we have to do things explicitly ourselves, but we have become orchestrators. And I want to lean in on this because what I found, and this is a personal experience, is that I don't have enough monitors anymore for the way that I work with AI. Right now, I've got 3 staring back at me. And when I typically go to work, they're not enough. And I have to switch among different desktops. Why? Simply because I have delegated typically I delegate a number of different things to a number of different AIs in parallel, and they're working in the background. And then they will alert me when they're finished, and I have to go back, recheck, move forward, and then go to another one. So what I've realized is that the role that we've been shifted towards as human beings who are leveraging AIs is one where we're like the conductor or the orchestrator. We don't necessarily have to play the instruments ourselves individually. Instead, we understand the sheet music. And then we understand how many particular types of musicians we would need in concert. And then we go through, set each of them up, and then we conduct. That is our new role in this era. And we need to absorb that. Many of us have a lot of difficulty in accepting that because we're moving from something that we're so familiar with. We have to be in the details of every single thing. We have to let go of that in order to truly embrace the intelligence age. We have to understand what these agents can do for us and embrace it. And once we do that, we're able to do so much more with so much less. And I need you to take this away. You are now hurtling towards a point in time where it is going to be demanded of you to be orchestrators. Many of us who are actually in organizations that are heads of teams or lead departments and the like, you are naturally an orchestrator. There are individuals that work with you, work under you, and you have to pay attention to the bigger picture and then delegate and coordinate. It's taking those same strengths that you would typically do in the real and applying it to the AIs that will be working for you in the digital space. Become the orchestrator, embrace and step into that particular role because the days of the executor they're gone and it's quite unnecessary based on the tech that we have, all right? Now, some final thoughts that would be obviously relevant in terms of us closing off our session 1. Protect your data. Like I mentioned earlier, with these tools that are out there, they're hungry for your data. So they have your information, or at least your settings, set the default to say that this user who's using our service for free won't mind us automatically collecting all of the information that they share so that we can retrain our model and make it even better. Into certain settings, you want to opt out of training, especially if you're going to use these types of free AIs or even the paid ones. Well, typically the paid ones would opt you out automatically because you're paying, but you need to check those settings every single time in every single app or AI tool or agentive software that you use. Opt out of training. So you need to make sure that you look for a setting that says, help me improve the model or help improve the model in some way, shape, or form. You'd often always find them under settings or your profile or the like, or privacy under that subsection. And then you want to uncheck it or turn it off. And that way, whatever you share with the AI will not be cached and not be recorded or logged to be funneled back into training a new model with your own personal exchanges. That's there. This was actually a major problem early on with ChatGPT free, where companies were sharing their trade secrets, and they were using those right back and training new versions of the GPT model. A lot of companies got into hot water with regards to get their employees not knowing about this particular feature. So be informed, look for this setting, ensure that you protect your privacy, especially if you're going to be using it on your behalf as an individual or on behalf of your own organization. You also want to make sure that you don't tell the AI any secrets, personal information, even if you have this off. Leave all of those specifics out. There are more secure ways that AIs can log in on your behalf. You want to use the OAuth connectors that they provide to you. Don't give the AI your passwords or any personal information, credentials for that matter. Never. You also need to understand what the particular paid plan might be, right? So some of you might have your companies pay for AI access in your behalf. And you need to make sure that, or if you're in charge of a company that would like to leverage AI on behalf of your employees, you need to make sure that the plans that are coming through don't automatically opt in all of your employees and opt in your company in terms of, feeding that privacy information back for retraining. So pay attention to that. Free tiers often kind of shaft you for good reason. If something is free out there, be extra vigilant, check your settings, check your privacy controls, turn them off, because they usually would have to put those in place. And again, just be, I won't say paranoid, but it's better to err on the side of caution. Assume that it's going to be stored somewhere, some way, shape, or form, right? So with these in mind, you want to ensure that you go about engaging AI tools in a responsible manner. In addition to that, you also want to ensure that you keep yourself in the driver's seat, that you're still in command of everything. There was a scenario where there was this open source developer who built an agentive harness. And that was called this is currently called OpenCloud, but it went through a number of different name changes. This particular tool made the headlines because it created this type of similar magic that ChatGPT did back in the day. But the type of magic that it created, it was, instead of conversing and generating content, it was actually able to take control of your computer and go out there and do stuff for you while you slept. And because it was developed in an open source manner, and the developer really, was not part of an entire community or a team at that moment that was putting this thing together, when he released it, it had a number of security holes in it. And the agent went off in certain scenarios, accessing the saved credit cards in the person's browsers, purchasing things on their behalf, consuming tons of tokens, thousands upon thousands of dollars, emptying bank accounts and the like. So it was a bit chaotic in that regard, simply because people didn't make sure that they kept themselves in command when wielding these technologies that come out. So be very vigilant, right? You need to verify that it is secure, that it checks all of the boxes before you give it anything meaningful for it to do any potential damage down the line, especially your credit card information for that matter. All right. So The other thing is that for those of us who have organizations that are forward thinking and progressive enough to have AI policies available, you need to make sure that you inform yourselves well enough of those particular policies. Policies in general, especially policies surrounding data, you need to be aware of, especially now as an intelligence worker. Be very vigilant, be knowledgeable about these, and ensure that you are able to enact those and follow them as closely as possible when using these tools. So what you find is that these types of AIs can consume information. And when they consume information, all of that information goes into the same place. And so there have been scenarios in which instructions are left deliberately in plain sight so that when a personal AI goes about consuming information elsewhere, it may happen onto these particular instructions and may somehow sway, depending on how the harness is engineered, it may sway the AI to disclose certain information and on its, on its programming, on the user's information and the like. So there may be situations whereby what they call prompt hacking. Prompt hacking can be applied in cases where there's malicious instructions that are left out there for the AI, or malicious instructions that are actually inserted into AIs that are not properly safeguarded. I mean, when you build your AIs, and this is for the developers, you need to ensure that it is hardened against any prompt engineering attacks that may occur. So what you have to be aware of is that if you're sending your AI out there to do things on your behalf, you need to make sure that that AI is properly hardened so that it doesn't fall victim to instructions being left in plain sight of it. And then always have a human in the loop. Typically, you're in the driver's seat and you should be in the driver's seat. The AI needs to check in with you. It needs to report back to you. It needs to provide all the updates. You need to verify. You need to make sure that everything is A-OK before you let it go on its next run. All right, good. So this summarizes how I would recommend each of you as you use your current AI tools to operate. So you want to start off with one of the tasks that the leverage audit identified. You can rank them, and this is what we'd recommend. Find the most yielding task that your leverage audit identified, all right? And then you want to try to hand it to the AI that you have. Now, some of you might not have a task that may be fully compatible with the current version of AI that you have, but that's okay. We'll look deeper into that in our second segment, where we'll be actually using certain tools that would allow for more. But most of the time, you'll be able to hand it to your AI, use the RCTF approach, role, context, task, and format, direct it to help you leverage that task appropriately. You need to verify what it produces, right? And of course, if you need to go back around once more to help to have it produce as you intend to do so in your refinement step. And then you repeat the process for the next task or the next execution of the same task, for example. So this is the step, that operating loop that we would want you to explore on a weekly basis as intelligence workers in leveraging your AI and getting that time back as well. All right, good. So this is the first session. We want to remind you to protect your data, remove that checkbox or toggle that setting off under help improve the model so that your information is not cycled around in the public. You want to make sure that you prompt properly, RCTF. And you need to make sure once you do that, you save the prompts that actually work, and then you recycle that next time around so you can save more time. All right. And I want you to do this during the time that we have in between this session and the next. And we're going to talk about what you've been able to accomplish through that in our session 2, where we dive more into the technology side of things. All right. So you've seen it, you've sized it. And this has been a great session. with the time that we have left, I'll open the floor for any questions or open conversation that you might have, and then we can wrap up at 1. But just to leave things with you, you have your leverage number, you have your target. You can understand how many hours you can get back as a professional if you leverage AI appropriately. We would have set the foundation in terms of having you understand what AI is and isn't, right? We haven't necessarily gone deeper into the technology side of it, whereby you're engaging with these AIs, but that's going to be taken care of in your second segment here. But you need to understand that AIs can play a prevalent role in your productivity, and you need to employ them appropriately, right? And this is the link. I'm going to copy this, see if I can get that. I have to exit my slide here. I'm going to copy this and get that to you in the chat. These are the resources to date you can download. Let me know if you have any trouble accessing those resources. And we're going to pick this up in session 2. So yeah, any other questions or thoughts in your mind? Right. All right. Glad you guys appreciated it. All right. Some information on narrow AI and general AI, please. Okay. So general AI. This is the holy grail, in fact. So I'll start with general AI in that sense, just to you're welcome. Just to share with you what the researchers and the AI for-profit companies are all after: artificial general intelligence. They want to create an AI so intelligent that you don't need to prompt it, that you just put it to work and it intelligently knows what to do, regardless of the domain, and it just does it exceedingly well. And it's not able to do that on the direction, but it does that to a great extent autonomously. So the idea of general AI is an AI that requires less intervention from a human perspective in order to get stuff done. The AIs that we have at present with regards to these models, they require us to give it context. They require us to give it directives. They require us to verify. They require us to validate and to refine in order to get something done. So as a case in point, the AI that I used to generate the website and the slide deck and the like did not know about my slant or my perspective in imparting information to you, right? I had to actually move it along through the paces every step of the way to produce the artifacts and the ideas and the whole processes that came into being. And that is relatively, you can think of it as narrower AI if you're comparing it to general AI. But if I had a general, like an AGI at my disposal, I would have only needed to say to it, I have a workshop coming up, and this is what the workshop is about. And before I finish that sentence, it would generate everything, even better than I put together here. It would generate the website, it would generate the interactive artifacts. It would understand that it's a web-based workshop, and you're going to have to use the proper tools that will leverage the medium. All of those things it would know without me having to explicitly express them and direct them and to design them. And it would look even better than what this is. And this is the disparity between the two. So narrow AI is still relevant in the sense that if you have a deep domain, a niche domain, and you need something that is extremely depth first in its understanding, then narrow AI is what you should employ. That is exceedingly well trained on the facts and the knowledge in that domain, to the extent at which when you use it, it's always gold that comes out of it. Generalization always has its trade-offs. But the holy grail that I spoke about with regards to AGI is that it's effectively taking, it's sort of like a fairy tale at present, but I'm not surprised. I won't be surprised if we do achieve it, where the AI is also, it's breadth first and it's depth based as well. So it knows everything about everything and it can do anything. And that's the AGI sense of the word, if that helps. All right. So did you get a chance to use Fable before it was banned? I did. And it's shockingly good. I use it for coding. It was a very difficult engineering problem that I threw at it. And it was able to blow me away in terms of how I was able to solve the problem, engineer the particular solution, and then offer even revisions on top of Opus before. The Fable that is back, unfortunately, has been further dumbed down. The benchmarks show it's less than 50% of its performance rate, but it's still pretty good. And this is a reality right now. We are innovating faster than the powers that be would prefer. And these research and development companies like Anthropic, the makers of Fable and Opus and the like, they have to dumb down the AIs because it's just so powerful that if the AI models are in the wrong hands, then we can spell catastrophe for the world over. And this is one of the things whereby that Anthropic was able to identify in its research, because these models are able to effectively and efficiently hack systems that have been proven to be hardened. And this is one of the main concerns why the US government had requested to pull the reins back on the original version of Fable. So we're in for an interesting time here with these models, but we don't have to worry too much about that. The reason being is that it's not really about the model. It's about how the model is harnessed, and it's how we are able to properly leverage what we currently have to, as I mentioned, take the time back. And with what we currently have, even if Fable is down, we can do quite a bit that we're not necessarily tapping into, right? All right, let's get some more questions in there. If I missed your question earlier on, please post it back in the chat, because the chat's pretty active. All right. And if you'd like, you can unmute and throw some questions out as well with the 10 minutes that we have left.
Hi, Eldon. I just wanted to revert to the audit.
Sure.
You can, like you said, you had the option of selecting multiple tasks that you do. All right. I noticed, so I just wanted for clarity, the numbers that we're seeing in orange, that speaks to the time that we can get back we have the number of hours, and then it says the number of full weeks across, like I had 7 tasks. And then there was a ranking, of course, as you mentioned, it ranked the top 3. Yeah. Just checking this if I'm reading. And then, of course, there's some, they give some instructions as to what you can do. Like, for instance, as a task agent, you can turn your reports and documents into a workflow. Like the creative companion, it said you could draft your presentation index with a creative companion. And of course, the task agent, you can let AI capture and draft meetings and follow up. So some of this is what I do. That's how I'm able to function. So, and I can attest to using the AI responsibly and using the right tools for the right job. I just wanted to add, as it relates to the young lady who spoke to her doing research for university, you can actually use Notebook LM, and let's say you have journals that you're citing in a specific study that you're doing, and you can add those journals, and then you could actually extract exactly what you need to prepare your research, because the AI in Notebook LM will actually extract exactly what you need Because I like Eldon. I wouldn't recommend ChatGPT as the best tool for research. There's Perplexity that you can use. Just wanted to add that because it actually has trusted sources that and references it will use when producing information for you. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, thank you for recommending that. And there's a plethora of tools. As a matter of fact, let me try to bring this canvas up for everyone. It might be a little out of date. I'm going to try to create something that is alive so it automatically updates. But I've been tracking a number of different tools and techniques across the different eras that we went through regarding AI. Just allow me for a moment. But in the meantime, I'll entertain other questions or comments. But thank you, Miss Lindy. See, so right, I see some other questions here. How relevant is programming in the AI age? That's a very good question. It's not as relevant as it was, to be perfectly frank, because AIs generate way better code than human beings. And I know some coders might argue with that, but they are designed to be pattern-based generators. And when you think about syntax code, that's all pattern-based. So what you find is that, and I mentioned earlier that my generation of coders will be the last generation of traditional coders that this world will ever see. And it's as real as I've stated it. So ever since these models have come mainstream, I have reskilled my entire team to leverage the agentive coding models and the agentive coding harnesses that come with them. So to the extent at which all we do is review code now, we don't write code anymore. We create the plans with the coding agents. We review the plans. We have the coding agents code everything up. We review the code. We run the code. We actually ask the agents to test it, and then we ship the code once it's fully tested and verified on our end. I haven't touched code in months, and that's how real this is. Yeah. So pretty much, it's not going to be as relevant in the AI age, which causes a stir and a number of other conversations to come forth as well. Yes, Joel.
Hi, I had a question in relation. I had a question in relation to this, the same coding, right? I just wanted to confirm. We put once AI generates the code, you would put the code in Node, right?
In notes?
Yeah. I wanted to know the don't you put it in code? In Node, sorry, on your computer, in Notepad, you put it in Notepad and you save it as well.
No, no, we don't use Notepad for coding, but we use what they call IDEs, which are these integrated development environments. And what they've done is that they're now building the AIs inside of the IDEs, these code editors. So there are specialized code editors that are used. Cursor is, and they've started off with an IDE, but they're shifting towards more of a Claude-like interface as well. Let me see if I can give you an insight into what that looks like. I'll start up Cursor on my end.
Awesome.
But on one side, you'll have the agent chat. On the other side, you'll have code. And then somewhere on the left, you'll have, this is Cursor. Can you see it?
Yeah, I'm able to see. Is this Cursor?
This is Cursor. So this is something I was doing. I think I was designing a model for a paywall. But this is on this side here, this is where you interface with the AI. And you give it some ideas. Like right now, I was cycling through a plan with the AI. Consider this revision, also work through this from a user subscriber experience front as well. And it was able to analyze that and then produce this plan based on that original plan. over here. So this is what the AI was able to produce. Like I said, developers that use this properly are able to go through a certain series of steps. You have to plan with the AI first. You have to get an idea based on your initial input, what the AI may code up on your behalf. Then you can have it revise it. And then once you're happy with the plan, then you can say build it. And then when it does the building, it will produce code. Let me show you. Like traditional code, this code is here. And I'll just use this as an example. You guys, yeah, like this is Python. So it will produce this code. That's still human readable, but it's something that developers are doing less and less. I didn't write this code, the AI did, but it took my direction. And I'm going to go back through it and make sure it works the way I expect it to work, right? So I'm always in that driver's seat. I'm always in the loop, but I don't write code anymore. It saves me a ton of time. Debugging is very good. If we delegate to AI as well, it saves a ton of time there as well. So this is what an IDE looks like. And you'll find that software applications are adopting this new shape. There's always going to be an AI that's embedded somewhere, and then there's going to be the regular controls. But you don't have to use these controls. I hardly use these controls. I'm over here most of the time. All right, hope that helps. All right, so what I wanted to show you is, I'll share this in the chat as well if I haven't already. I think I have. But this is a Figma board. You guys can jump in here if you have a Figma account. But this Figma board shows a ton of stuff. I'm going to zoom in here. This is how it's meant to be read. And it shows the transition on a time scale. All right. So on this axis, we're looking at automation complexity. On this axis, we're looking at human involvement, which is starting out high and going all the way to, actually, no, it's starting out low and then it's going all the way to high. And then on the advancement timeline, it's weird, I know, but because it's concentric circles, it goes from the outside and then it comes in. And we have started from the outer ring of this. Before generative AI, this was more deterministic automation, where we had the relatively simple models. Then we entered into superhuman execution. And that's where around the 2022 era, generative AI gold rush, ChatGPT, all of that, we entered this superhuman execution realm. Then we started with agentic architectures. Agents came about here. Then we have this co-creation, this symbiotic co-creation, where AIs are multiplying human beings' efforts and increasing quality and the like. The future will now lead us straight towards this nucleus, which is very, very hard for AI. This is the one thing that human beings can preserve as truly human, our creative genius. Why? Because our creative genius is not based on any data set. It's not based on trends or patterns. It just happens. We don't even know how it happens, but it happens. And because it has no foundation in data, AIs find it very hard to replicate this. So even though you might think AI is after my job, all you have to do is ensure that you maximize through this symbiotic co-creation to become augmented by the AI well enough to remain marketable, and take comfort in knowing that our technology stack will take quite a while before it can get to replicate raw human genius, because the whole premise of AI is based on data. It has to have context, it has to have data in order to produce anything. We are of a different breed as human beings. We don't need anything to produce something. So I know we're over time. This was a great session. I want to thank everyone for spending the time, especially through your lunch, to share in this. And I'm hoping that we are all empowered, we're all refocused, and our perspectives have shifted in the right direction around AI. So I'll see you in session 2 next week, same time, where we'll wrap up. All right. Thanks, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you. Enjoy it, Mr.
Good.
Marks. It was a great session.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
really appreciate it. I do need a little bit more information on the web development. I can work on that later. Thank you so much for the
Sure thing.
preview. Thank you so much.
Sure thing. All right. So yeah, if anyone needs to reach out to me or engage, you can check all my contact information is on my website. It's eldonmarks.com. And you can take a look at some of the stuff that I've worked on over the years there. All right. Good. Until next time, everyone. Take care.